present the afternoon workshop and talk, United Front, featuring Dr. Gabriela Pereyra. Gabby Pereyra, from the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust, is a Venezuelan Uruguayan transplant to New York. Her immense love for plant ancestors started at an early age, when she began to learn anything and everything about them, especially their relationship to people and agro-ecosystems. Gabby's current responsibility as Land Network Weaver is to seed and strengthen relationships, networks, collaborations, and knowledge exchange among Black, Indigenous, and other land stewards of color. Over the past 15 years, Gabby has worked alongside farmers and land stewards from the Americas, Africa, and Europe, learning about the magical trade-off of carbon, nitrogen, and water between the soil, plants, and the sky. As a descendant of immigrant and refugee ancestors, and as an immigrant herself, her commitment is to the reconnection of communities and land under land tenure models that support human beings and non-human beings to create more equitable possibilities for our future ancestors. Please welcome Dr. Pereyra.
I'm Gabby. I go by Gabby. My pronouns are she and ella. I'm currently a farmer in New York. I always make the joke that I'm married to a New Yorker, not to New York. So today I want to talk about what is equitable leadership, power, and collaborative decision-making impact for land sovereignty. I bet that when you go to your traditional agricultural conference, you don't hear those words, right? So we don't talk about the power of the people, the power of the seeds, the power of the soil, and the power of us as a community. So very respectfully, I'm here to invite us all to think about how can we, from our intersectionality, kind of start to think about feeding our communities and our role in that. Full disclosure, not everybody has a green thumb, so it's okay if you are not out there on the field. So there are plenty of connections between the seed and the people that are eating that we need to all work on that. So what do you see in this picture? Specifically, from your breakout group, how do you see the connection between the discussions there with this picture?
Nature.
Nature, naturaleza. Is nature competing with humans?
Seem to be collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
I see interconnectedness.
Can you speak a little bit more about what is that interconnection?
I'm just looking, I see, from this distance with my multifocals, which are not serving well, I see a park or greenland and people enjoying it, and I see the birds. And so the first thing that just came to my mind was interconnectedness, interdependency, but more so interconnectedness. Everything in that picture needs each other, that's why.
Thank you so much for humor me a little bit more. Yeah, this is a beautiful picture, draw made by Kai Diluvio. So we give them the prompt. What if we say, we are in this world, but we are not of this world? How will you put that in visuals? So, and she took the wonderful prompt that we gave that is very abstract, right? And she created this drawing where we have humans and non-humans interacting with each other, all being part of life. So I come from a school of agriculture where we are taught that agriculture is equal to the pounds of an animal or the yield of a field, right? What we want is to make that plant to grow as fast as possible and to have as many pounds per plant that we want. The same with the animal. And that came from the 60s, the 70s, where the world was not in a good shape, meaning that there was a lot of famine, right? So we needed to change our agricultural science to a point that we need to produce more, faster, and quick and cheaper, right? Because Green Revolution. We changed the architecture of plants. We moved to few breeds of animals because we need to feed us. But what we forgot, to feed who feed us, the land, right? That on top of systematic racism, levels of discrimination that goes beyond. And from all that today, we have a very catastrophic scenario, and I'm sorry, but it's true. So we poison our water, we poison our soil, we still treat humans as an object on our fields, and those that have that crazy passion to see a seed go from seed to seed, that beautiful cycle, cannot afford to live a life without having 3 jobs. For example, me, I'm a farmer, but I work in a nonprofit, Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust. Last year, I lost 95% of my crops because of flooding. Right? So the only land that I could afford to farm was beautiful land, has no infrastructure, has not been cleaned or served in 30, 40 years. The second year that I start to grow something, forget about it. I still need to work in the nonprofit sector. But in working for the nonprofit sector, I have learned a few things. So when we start to work, we have this condition that is you need to work hard. You need to, work hard and you get results. Because all the things that we did in the 70s as a society, we today are experiencing this collapse. And the only way that we can work together if is our individual system, we make it part of an ecosystem. And that is why you see that interconnections there. Why? Because building wealth, it doesn't compete with respecting nature. Have equity and advocate for our rights doesn't take from building meaningful relationships and reciprocity to have the food that we need to eat, right? So those things doesn't compete with each other. And this is a nice reminder that in every action or trying to think and our day-to-day action related with the agri-food system is how are we helping other people and how are we being helped? Speaking of what Yvette told us, it was not about me asking for help. It was me thinking what I'm taking from others, right? So reciprocity, it's always very important. What are we doing for others, but how are others helping us? And in this scene, there are people that has been historically, systematically underserved, and they should be on the front. We should uplift every single effort that they are telling us that they need support. And from our intersection, where we are as a humans, we need to think as well, but what can I ask others? For example, I was at lunch talking to Maria and to Estacio. I was asking them, what is the best way to trellis my tomatoes? I fall this week in my farm trying to trail my tomatoes, but they have 20, 30 years of experience. So, right? So like, no shame on asking to support, asking to who knows better. And the reality is that our community looks like that, right? So we want to be on the land. We say before, we cannot afford it, right? But we have the knowledge, and that is related to feeding our community. And there is a beautiful, beautiful community of peoples in the Northeast and all over the country trying to making this happen. The scale differs, right? So we see that from the gardens to the big acreage, we all have an opportunity to remember what it is to have that cycle from seed to seed. There are people that need to come back to that knowledge, education, from where our food comes from. There are kids this day that they think that blueberry is a flavor. Not, and they are from the Northeast, right? Right? So, and adults too. And it's not shaming them, it's shaming us, the ones that have access to the blueberries, to the strawberries. Like, how can we pass that knowledge, right? That help everyone to understand that behind every egg, behind every strawberry, there is many, many hands that make that possible. So in my work in particular, I work in services. So in the Northeast Farmers of Color, we have a network of more than 600 people from Maine to West Virginia that are looking to deepen the relationship with the land. And that can be through stewardship, to homestead, to agricultural business. So it's very complicated to have 600 bosses. But the best that we can do is not only do the transactional aspect of it. So a lot of the service providers in this room, and this is a call in as a colleague, are very used to fill this form. You have this, and I can do that, right? So how we interconnect that, how we see the human in front of us and understand that our actions are relational, but we all have as well ancestral things to bring to the table. Not only that individually we have ancestral relationship with the land and the food, is that we very often forget that we are in land that is not from our ancestors, right? How can we respect the fact that we are here on this land and the people that over thousands of years were here stewarding this land has no longer access to grow their seeds, has no longer access to live in this territory because they cannot afford, right? So how can we support from, again, our intersectionality, their culture, and not taking it? So again, thinking about service provider is not about I am the person that fills not only, that is very important, there's the person that fills the form from you, or I am in the government office that can give you a grant. Think about how you are training the next generation that comes after you, and what is the type of leadership that you want to cultivate from them, and what can you learn from them, right? So it is in this we are all together. After all the things that I say, how in this picture, how you think that we can build from our abilities? So what do you see in this picture?
See life, vibrant life.
Mm-hmm. And how can you build life?
Animals, right? So from the butterflies to maybe the bees, right? Like they help pollinate flowers, and then flowers create fruit for the humans to enjoy, and then the birds. So it looks like it's this delicate balance, and everyone has their role, from the humans to the animals. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So although we have heard several times the word disability today, I want to encourage everyone to think about your ability. A lot of nowadays in agriculture, we focus in fix what doesn't work. What if we start to uplift what is working already, right? What if we start to build those strengths? What if we forget that we need to sign 3,000 forms to get to that point, right? So how can we start to shift from this moment to understand, to support that pipeline that go from the garden to the large acreage in every single aspect? It is not about the person that starts in the garden and goes to manage 25, 50 acres later. It's not about that. It is supporting everyone on that pipeline that want to stay where they are at, right? And see how the tools that we have right now might shift to support everyone in the pipeline. If we are not doing that, we are doing something wrong. Go bigger, go home. Let's leave that in the last century, right? So it is about meeting everybody where they are at, right? And respecting and understanding that healing is part of this. And I have a colleague that she says that healing is ghetto. I fully support and think that. So where it is our responsibility, I think it's our generational responsibility to start to see ourselves through our future kids. Either family or those kids in your life, right? So even though if you are 18 years old, what are you leaving to 3 generations in front of you? And to the person that is working with you, that is this 18 magnificent year old, are you listening to them? Are you giving them the space to tell you what are the things that they need to thrive? Right? So let's think about them. How are we putting this together? And I want to give the last example of what I think is the tree of the 40 fruits. Are you familiar with this tree? Cherry blossom? Looks like, right? So this tree lives in Syracuse, New York. It is a tree that is able to give 40 different fruits. It speaks to wonders of agriculture, right? So it is a tree that has apple roots, but with careful crafting, you can insert a new variety. That is why on the right you see different colors of the blossoming, because it's actually, at that point, I believe 10 or 12 different type of fruits. And with this, I want to give the example that your roots are your roots. Your roots doesn't change. Your values comes with you, with your identity from your ancestors. But if you are planted in a different environment, be open to insert new things every time. And you won't blossom all the time in everything. It takes time that grow. But eventually, over time, you will be able to have this 40 fruits approach. Over time, you are planted very deep with your ancestrals, with your family, with your community. However, you can blossom at different times in different things.
I think that was such a profound talk that we're all still reflecting and absorbing. Thank you for that.